Let's now delve into the significant realm of merchant acquiring, where a remarkable $100 billion opportunity awaits in the small business sector. Join us in uncovering how this synergy empowers businesses and fuels economic growth with this session. First up, it's my honor to call upon our moderator, co-founder, CEO, and MD, Lyra India, Rajesh Desai. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, we can be much more louder with our applause. Thank you, Mr. Desai, for joining us. Joining us next, Head Merchant Sales and Acquiring India and South Asia Visa, Rishi Chabra. Thank you, Rishi. CBO Offline Payments, Paytm, Ripunjai Gaur. Thank you, Mr. Gaur, for joining us. And founder, SabPaisa, Abhimanyu. What a fantastic panel to witness on the stage of GFF. With that, let's go ahead to Mr. Desai to take it forward.
Thank you so much. Rishi, welcome.
Ripunjai,
welcome.
Thank you.
Abhimanyu, welcome. It's great to be here. We have an extremely diverse and distinguished panel here today. All come from various fields, or maybe the same fields, but the objective is very clear. One and only, having a bigger digital India. That's the focus of this entire space. Within this space, we are looking at the merchant acquiring space. The topic for today is the $100 billion opportunity for small businesses in the merchant acquiring space. That's what we're going to discuss about. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rajesh Desai. I'm the CEO, co-founder, and MD of Lyra. If I can set the tone, if I can set the context of this discussion, merchant acquiring, this space is rather a very staid space. When it comes to merchant acquiring, it is often perceived to be as local, offline, processing extensive, less physically intensive, and not having all those new age elements in that, But times have changed with e-commerce plunging, with e-commerce exponential growth in e-commerce space, with a line of small merchants who are looking at probably getting digitized. I think the entire space is changing in terms of merchant acquiring. And that's what we're going to discuss about. Before I dwell deeply down this topic, let's talk about this $100 billion opportunity. So maybe we can open up Rishi. Some opening thoughts on this discussion?
Absolutely. Thank you. And great to be here. It's a very, very interesting topic to speak about. I think a lot of conversations over the last 2-3 days have been around new product launches, where the world is moving to, how the ecosystem is going to evolve. But I think the fundamentals around all of this is the small business opportunity we have in India right here, right now, in front of us. Simple stats, right? 70 million plus, 80 million plus small businesses. 6, 7, 8 million of them today accept electronic payments, how we knew it a few years ago, which was with POS devices. We have many millions today accepting QR codes and getting digitized from that perspective. So the good news is that the opportunity, the sense of digitization, the want to feel like a bigger player is right there. It's right now. The question is, how big can this get, right? I think the entire ecosystem, and thanks to the governance, the regulations, with the upcoming payment aggregators, payment gateways, all that's a part of the ecosystem, is helping this move forward to that $100 billion opportunity. For all the digitization that's happened over the last 6-7 years, there's still expected to be about $1 trillion worth of cash displacement opportunity that India is going to see between now and the next 10 years. If you think about $1 trillion, from there to make a meaningful business about $1 billion doesn't seem that hard, right? But a lot of things have to work in that manner and fashion. The players have to coexist, work together, the acquirers with the payment gateways, with the merchant aggregators, with the small businesses, and the willingness to keep innovating and adopting to newer technologies. So I think it's a very bullish time. It's the right time to be in this business. The issuance side, the UPI side, it's also one side of the puzzle. You got to get the other side of the puzzle there as well for this ecosystem to work. So at least initially, that would be my views on this.
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you for those great thoughts. Of course, I think timing is perfect. We need to jump in very hard in that. Ripunjai, what do you think about it? What are your thoughts?
So, as Rishi mentioned, this is the time where more and more small and medium merchants are getting acquainted to use digital ecosystem. The journey started from top cities in India. Now it's like top 100 cities, and we see in Paytm that it should reach within this financial year or maybe next 12 months to top 300 cities or top 400 cities, where 50 to 60% of the merchant business will come from digital transactions. So obviously there will be a lot of GMV which is getting processed digitally, and that actually helps to build the revenue opportunity. So once you know that who is the merchant, what is the earning potential of the merchant, there are a lot of upselling you can do. You can do financial service upselling with ONDC round the corner. We have already launched in some of the cities. There is a commerce opportunity to the merchants, because digitalization actually helps the merchant to know and to go enter into the world, which is like a seamless opportunity where everything can come into shop without actually doing it offline. So with more than, say, 100 million merchants, I think this is very, very possible. And it is just round the corner where merchants will not just accept payments. Payments is the less margin business, as all of us know, especially in the small, medium enterprise businesses. But the opportunity will also come from selling some things, because the merchant is now digitalized. You can predict the income. You can predict the transactions which that merchant is taking. So definitely this is the time where a lot of momentum will come in this space. Next 2 years are very important.
Thank you. I agree completely. Your thoughts?
Thank you, Rajesh. So, to everything, I give a little bit of personal touch. So, let me take it a bit more personal. You see, every company, every startup, before they become unicorn or they don't become, is once a small business. Visa was, I'm sure, long time back. Paytm was 13, 14 years back. We are all babies. They become some big businesses, sometime later. And for any business, small, big, payments are a lifeblood. You can't exist if you can't accept payments, if you don't have money. And so while for business, for us, they might just be, we can look at it in a professional, in a very abstract perspective. For a startup, for being a small business, India has to become, if India has to become what we want it to become, if Bharat has to become what we want it to become, a manufacturing hub, a startup hub, then we must make sure that this is facilitated by a very good payment ecosystem. And there are so many things that are not happening right now that will need to happen. And this space is a $100 billion opportunity right now. It will become even bigger. But for all this to happen, it's from a business perspective, it's a lot of money, but also from a technology, from a service, from a product perspective, it's a very, very exciting place for a startup to be, because in a way you are enabling a business to exist, an infant to survive, so that it one day becomes an adult. So yeah, so for me, from that personal perspective, it's also very, very important space. A small business is probably the most important space in that sense, because only then big businesses will exist one day, if we can make sure that these businesses exist.
Thank you for all your opening thoughts. The way we'll do it is, I'll open up a question for probably Rishi, and then all can pump in. Same for the two speakers as well. Yeah. If we have, this is a 40-minute session, so if you have time at the end of it, we'll keep it open to the audience as well, and then take questions from there. So Rishi, this small business sector is often referred to as a $100 billion opportunity, especially for merchant acquirers. Can you elaborate a bit on this figure, and also maybe throw some light on the potential of the market for the future?
And I think, as I said earlier, if you think about the trillion-dollar cash displacement opportunity sitting in front of us, that's, again, right here, right now, over the next few years. How do you digitize the small business that's not digitized today? That's part A. Part B, aspirations for any small business to get bigger as the ecosystem goes, right? Single channel, dual channel, omni-channel. How does the acquirer, the payment aggregator, technology providers in the ecosystem help the small businesses doing that? All of this doesn't come free. There's obviously a price opportunity for the value you provide for everybody in the ecosystem. It's not only about the payments value that you provide, but it's all the peripheral services you can draw around that. Whether it's lending, whether it's loyalty, whether it's invoicing services, tax services, financial services, whatever the case may be. But the reality is the value opportunity to do that is very, very significant in the entire ecosystem, right? I was saying earlier, only 6 or 7 million small businesses as defined have POS devices today. Now, thanks to our friends here at Paytm, thanks to others, right? We have Pine Labs, others who have gone out in the market and saying, hey, we will launch newer devices, which are going to be a fraction of the cost. It'll help you tap and pay. It's going to help you with a QR code. It's going to help you with a sound box all in, right? That's the innovation we need in this ecosystem that all small businesses feel they can be included. It's an inclusive ecosystem. The data, the reporting, the analytics can work. So it's not that my one form of payment is getting reported here, one form of payment is getting reported there. It all comes together nicely. They have aspirations to grow as they see payment volumes and their business goes up. And while all of this happens, every provider who is providing value, right from that device to peripheral things around the device, will get and should get compensated for those services. You can argue how much and how less and how more. That's for a different day. But if we truly believe that the true Bharat and tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, tier 6 cities still have to get digitized, the 100 billion opportunity seems real from that perspective.
And I think, Rishi, one more thing is people in India is a very typical market. We call small business today because we don't know what he's processing. And this is very interesting thought because with digitalization, what is happening, a lot of business were dealing in cash. We were never aware what is their true potential. With digitalization coming up, we know what is the true potential of that business. So as you rightly mentioned, that payment, our dear friend also said that payment is just a foot in the door. With digitalization journey coming up, merchants have a lot of other needs, which you mentioned that there has to be a POS machine, there has to be a loyalty solution, there has to be devices. So with a period of step-by-step journey, I think the revenue opportunity is huge. The only challenge which we see with is how well we can connect, because India has a lot of demographical differences among cities, a lot of regional context. So the only challenge which we see is how, as a company, as Paytm, we can address those differences of, because India is not one place you can have one marketing strategy and it can work over the entire nation. So only thing is how the payment aggregators, the scheme aggregators and the government can adapt to the differences which are there in the market.
Abhimanyu, your views on this?
Yeah, picking up from what Ripunjai said, that there are a lot of differences. And I think one of the biggest difference that, in fact, we thought of working on that in SabPaisa was the regional ones, the language differences. So, and again, from personal touch, I discovered this by chance when one of my aunts, cousin's mom, she was having difficulty in understanding a specific payment checkout. And that's when I realized that, okay, I mean, what is very, very simply is something very, very simple for us. I mean, we don't even think, I have never thought once when going through a checkout page that what could this possibly mean, and that the language could deter me from paying, because I fear, will I click on something and something will happen, because I do not really understand the language. So I think this, the multilingual thing, the fact that everything has to be in a language which the person who's going to make the payment understands. And this precisely comes from what Ripunjai said. There are lots of differences, regional differences that will need to be tackled.
Completely agree. So next question to you probably again. So all these small businesses, if you look at, they have specific challenges
Right.
when it comes to acceptance of payments, you know.
Right.
So how do you think merchant acquirers can come up with innovative solutions in order to cater to these challenges?
Okay, I'll make it slightly bigger if I may be allowed
Sure.
to. I think not only acquirers, but the thing I'm about to talk, just one thing I'll talk, and probably in that even Government of India will need to come in, is one thing, again, from personal perspective, a story, I wrote a book about 8 years back, which became a bestseller. It was a romantic thriller. And at that point of time, there was interest from outside. Like, okay, fine, can you also teach us something about this? How did you write? And I thought, why not? But again, I'm a busy person. I thought, I can't do it for free. Let me see how I can charge for it. Right? And people outside are willing to pay. They're willing to pay a lot of for learning writing, at least at that point of time. Now that ChatGPT has come in, maybe all that is gone. But and suddenly that's when I discovered that there was no way I could easily take payments as an individual from people outside. The international payments is still a big hurdle. And if you're talking about, again, as a small business, and if you're talking about India becoming what we want it to become, it cannot be just domestic payments. If you need to really become a startup or a small business, they need to go global. They need to become international. And there, again, and here, one of the biggest problems we have faced in SabPaisa, I think, is that how do you determine whether the business is genuine? Because fraud is a big challenge here. And so, in 2 lines, I think what one thing is really lacking in our country, and maybe, I don't know if really this exists in the world, we always look at people as consumers. So we look at them how we can make sure that, when we give out loans, let's say, to consumers, they have a good credit rating. So that makes us sure that, okay, fine, this person will return the money. But there's no such specific, very, very organized way of rating, let's say, when a small business starts. I mean, as a creator, as an entrepreneur, I should also get a rating, right? Okay, fine. I mean, Abhimanyu will not likely run away with your money. I mean, I can, but no, I shouldn't say that. Okay, fine. Payment company guy. No, I will never run away with your money, right? And there should be some mechanism to identify that, okay, fine, Abhimanyu is a trustworthy person, even though he's an individual, right? So there's some sort of rating system has to evolve for this thing to happen. I think, and that's where I think even Government of India, the merchants acquire themselves only cannot do this. The entire ecosystem has to come together to create a rating system for creators the way it's for consumers.
Ripunjai, what views on this?
Two things which are most important and sometimes which Abhimanyu is saying and sometimes become a challenge, because the two things which is very important for a small business is the trust and ease of operations. So I will take the second point first. Most of these owners are like self-operated merchants. So they are like owner also, and they are operating their shops themselves. So when they operate their shop themselves, they have a lot of multitasking which they have to do. So payments is like a regular feature. Every 5-10 minutes they have to do a transaction. So it has to be, the cognitive load of taking the payment has to be reduced to zero. And that is where the aggregators have to play a role, where the merchant, especially the small merchants, does not have a cognitive load of taking a payment transaction and then reconciliation. So if we are able to reduce that to zero, which today is still there, I think everybody on the platform will come on the digitalization journey, because everybody wants digital transaction. Cash has a lot of hassles. The second, the trust. Trust is a two-way phenomena. The acquirer has to trust the merchant, and merchant also has to trust the acquirer. So there are a lot of things which is, if a new merchant comes, if he does not have any digital footprints, it is very difficult from the acquirer end to trust the merchant. So there are restrictions in terms of limits, in terms of funding sources which we can offer, whether it is international card or whether it is anything else. So if we can have that system where trust of a new merchant can also be assessed, and merchants can also have a trust. And the trust will only come when he has experienced it, or he is able to understand, because most of the time merchant feels कि यार मेरा पैसा पता नहीं कहाँ चला जाएगा. And he is not able to reconcile transactions. उसमें MDR लगा, उसको payment he have settled, but he is not able to reconcile it. So those things are something where we have been trying to do voice, because these merchants cannot understand to reconcile through an app. They have to have some kind of a voice assistance to reconcile their payment journey and to build that trust. And we have seen in Paytm, if that trust is there, then it is like no leaps and bounds. Then merchant is more happy taking a digital transaction than the cash.
I think very well put. The only thing I would add is we often don't reward good behavior. And what I mean by that is we look at every transaction, every merchant typically with the same lens, because as the scale grows, it's hard to personalize, individualize every merchant. So the same kind of rules that we apply from when it comes to a funding hold or something else, which can be very bothersome to a small business. These are not fun things they want to deal with day in and day out, right? They want to accept their payments and move on. They don't want to be calling some call center to figure out why the payments have not been delivered to their bank account, right? Now, because of that, we often, I think, when I say whether it's the networks with the acquirers, aggregators in the marketplace, we don't do a good job of saying, somebody who's been doing such good behavior should get rewarded for some of these. These kinds of things shouldn't apply for a merchant like this, right? So this one-size-fits-all approach, unfortunately, doesn't work. It's every merchant is very unique, and to your earlier point, India is unique in many, many ways. This diversity adds even a bit more here. So it's a task at hand. Innovation, again, on the risk side, on the compliance side, constantly has to be dialed up. I think that's one area. There's been good work done, I think, on the KYC side and onboarding of a merchant, but the ongoing risk monitoring, ongoing changes in operational risk, changes in philosophies, how you think of funding the merchant, that has not changed very significantly last many years. So I think that also needs to evolve along with times for the merchant to feel comfortable being part of the digital ecosystem.
Yeah, you're right. We are still benchmarking rules of a large merchant to a smaller segment. Perfectly right.
Right. Ripunjai, let me take this on the topic. Regulations and compliance. They are very important considerations when it comes to the payment industry. How do you think these merchant acquirers can really help small businesses navigate these challenges, for a seamless payment processing operation?
So I think in any payment industry, the regulation and compliance is the most important aspect because there are a lot of misuse which can happen. And as Rishi was mentioning, both acquirer, merchant, government, and these schemes have to understand that he is like most of them will be like a first-time interaction to the digital ecosystem. He may not have all those even those documents which are needed, which a large merchant have. So today, so we have to tackle him, that we have to onboard him, and then the operational risk comes in. So today, if you talk about compliance and risk, we are judging the merchant on the entry. But in a small merchant segment, most of them even does not have a business proof. That they do not have that, they cannot even give a document where they are doing some kind of business. The business proof may be in some other name and he is operating the shop. And he wants payments to be coming to his bank account. So there is a lot of risk. So then the operational risk which Rishi was talking about is very, very important, that we have to build those models where we have a level that this is a small merchant segment. We have to judge him on the basis of the GMV he is doing. It should not be that if those rules which are assigned, those chargeback rules which are assigned to a larger merchant are assigned to those small merchants also, because he is not processing GMV with invoice. Most of the GMV is not, he does not give the invoice to the user. So those things are important, and we have to look into that way, that can we do segmentations of the merchant, can we segment processing by categories, or we can have geographical segmentations that, okay, this is a merchant which is in tier 3, we will look at differently in operational risk metrics. So those things have to be worked out. Both aggregators, schemes, and governments are learning, because this industry is like almost, payment industry almost becomes double every year. So everyone learns. There are a lot of frauds which comes in. There are a lot of new learning which comes in. So I think we are on a right path, but we have to accelerate it if we have to achieve that $100 billion revenue opportunity or fully tap it.
Rishi, any thoughts on this?
I think the only 2 points I would add is one, I think we are somewhat fortunate because our regulator is a little forward-looking in this aspect, which is, with the advent of tokenization that's happened on online commerce, that feels a lot more comfortable doing shopping online from a consumer perspective, from a small business to accept payments. So I think some of those trends are working in the right direction. Also, the second point is the onus of having the small business be compliant, feel secure, safe, reliability, a lot of that sits with the merchant acquirer and aggregator, right? Whether we do PCI DSS, compilation, whether the merchant does it, whether the acquirer does it, who does it on whose behalf. But that education has to constantly happen because at the end of the day, as scale increases, we all got to be ready that the bad side of that is fraud and bad actors also increase. Right? That's the other end of the spectrum that's bound to happen. How do you keep the system safe and secure is a challenge for all of us. I think that's why the tokenization guidelines mandates, however painful they may seem to deploy and execute, is the right path forward. Because that's the only way you'll make sure that the transactions are more secure and safe as time goes by, as well as the education that the acquirers and payment aggregators, the funds who are touching the merchant upfront, have to constantly do to our ecosystem. Will always keep evolving and always has to happen.
Thanks. Your take?
I think both Ripunjai and Rishi have put it pretty comprehensively, that there needs to be a balance between the kind of compliance we want and the fact that the small businesses are already burdened with just making the business go along. One thing I really want to catch from what Rishi said is this education part. I think a lot of times a lot of gap, and things can be made simpler just by educating people properly. And there you really can't really leave it to the other party. For example, right now, you have so many compliances when you start a business, and there could be one, mandatory, let's say, online session that you need to complete. 15 days, 20 days, of all the ins and outs of, why that compliance exists, why you are doing it, how does it benefit you, how does it benefit the government, how does it benefit the consumer. So that anxiety, that anger sometimes that we see in small businesses that, hey, why am I being asked to do this, right? That to a certain extent can be tackled. Second, I think that, again, from an education perspective, the world has moved on, but we are still very text-based. So if I go to any government site and anything, everything is text, and that too in a way that it is not attractive. I think that if the government could, hire 50 people, who make good reels, and it can do that easily. It doesn't take too much of money. It's government after all. And then, put those reels, in very funny reels. I think that those kind of even small things will go a long way. Education will go a long way in, of course, compliance has to be there. That fraud exists. You can't wish for a world where that didn't happen. But that onerous burden can be lessened maybe if you understand the reason for those burdens, and then maybe we are more willing to take those burdens. A good education in this scenario is really necessary. I totally agree with Rishi.
Right. So Rishi, you mentioned about trends, changing trends. In fact, change is the only thing which is constant. And in the payments landscape, it is rapidly changing. Dwelling to our topic, what do you think are the trends for the future? And how do you think merchant acquirers can help small businesses embrace these changes?
Yeah, I think this is going to be, as I said, interesting next few years. One is getting the small business into a digital ecosystem, which itself I think will be a step change over the next few years. I think data and the use of data is going to play an important role. How we can educate the merchants back on their own data, which today they have no insight into. Either they don't have time to worry about or look at it. How do, again, the acquirers, the aggregators do a good job of playing back that data to the merchants, to helping the merchant grow themselves. So at the end of the day, everybody in the ecosystem grows if the merchant grows. It's all on the back of the merchant growing, right? So you got to make the merchant keep growing, and you do that by providing the right value. So trend, I think, in using data to either lend against that, so the merchant's working capital becomes smoother and easier. Data that helps the merchant do better marketing, that they know what kind of customers they should be getting into their, or the footfall they should be getting into their store, as well as loyalty solutions that the merchant feels bigger than what they're supposed to feel. Today, every small business feels they're small and they're neglected. How do you make a small business feel bigger that they don't feel they're neglected, right? So some of these trends, and then obviously the back end of the house, which is the accounting, reconciliation, and the tax, all that, what we would call the fun stuff, has to come together in a way that the burdensome from the merchant is kind of taken away, right? Because that's the part the merchant doesn't enjoy. And that's a trend, I think, where we've got to focus a lot on helping the merchant truly run their business better. We all are focused on the payment side. That eases operation from a intake of cash perspective. But everything that happens afterwards, the finance, the accounting, taxation, is someplace we got to help the businesses as well as on the lending side, the marketing side, and the usage of data side. I think those are some trends we'll see evolve a lot more as the system gets more digitized. That's from an SMB's perspective. From an acquirer's, I think, perspective is one, better credit KYC as you're kind of onboarding a merchant. How do you make it faster? What used to take 10 days became 6 days, became 4 days, becomes 2. How does it become 1 day? How do you fund the merchant sooner? What used to be 4 days funding later, 3 days, 2 days, 1 is now become intraday. And then last but not the least, how do we keep educating that merchant constantly from a security and safety perspective?
Any thoughts?
So I think trends are very, very positive because there is a lot of revenue opportunity which now companies are seeing in it, because it is you can yourself understand that with UPI QR starting to UPI credit card QR, the per shop GMV is increasing, with machines becoming more and more available to the merchants at a lesser cost. The GMV of a merchant who is digitally processing is actually increasing. With that, there is a lot of revenue opportunity which is getting generated, and we had a lot of sessions on lending in this event, and everybody was saying that small and medium enterprises is the next segment where the focus is. And why? Because these were the people who were deprived of these kind of facilities. They used to be non-organized sector lending where people were taking loans from somebody they knew, but now they have a digital footprint where they can establish that they have a revenue source, and banks or financial services companies, Paytm or anybody else, once know that you have a earning capability with KYC things, it is very easy to lend now these days, and it is evolving. So I think there's a lot of good trends which are already coming. There are very successful case studies which are already there. And I'm sure with data history becoming now 1 year, 2 year old, you have a predictability in the earning of the merchants. So which will change the game forever.
Thank you. So in the essence of time, we have just 5 minutes left. That's what I've been told. One last question to all of you all. Maybe you can answer that first. Partnerships and collaborations in any industry, including the payment industry, are very, very common. So you have these independent software vendors, fintech startups, new payment players, new payment networks. How do you think merchant acquirers can collaborate with all of them for seamless operation for the small businesses?
Okay, so I think that since the previous question, the trends was going on, I'll simply pick it up from there. Sure. And one of the trends that, of course, is visible to all of us is the fact that AI has come in a big way and will continue to totally transform the world. Simultaneously, I think AR, VR is also coming in. It has got a bit of a hurdle, but it will be there soon. So, for example, one immediate thought that came to my mind, a few days back, I was in the store of the apartment complex where I live, and everything, trying to find things was so difficult. And I'm sure that the person who it's a big store, they're handling it well, I'm sure. They have a reason why they have where they have put things. But it didn't make sense to me. And suddenly thought that this could, I'm sure this is going to dynamically, this completely change in the near future where payments is going to happen through QR codes. And of course, there would be AR thing coming in. So you would have very soon a system where there would be so much of data about what is the ideal layout for that store. How a customer actually travels to the store, what are the items they most pick up. And I'm sure that probably, whether that will be allowed or not is a different thing. Privacy is also very, very important. How a specific customer is moving through your store, how many times they come, and what do they pick up and where they go. So all kinds of insights will be available, of course, bounded by the privacy, which is also very important. I think this is where things are going in. So here, again, partnerships. You have to partnership with a company which is probably good at AI and data analytics. Another company which is, of course, a payment company can't do everything. You can't go and become a AR company, right? So you have to partner with a AR company, and to make this particular solution possible for that specific retailer, there you have to do a lot of partnerships. So that's where the world is going.
Absolutely. Rishi, your take on this?
Yeah, I think there is no other option than to partner. I think with the way things are moving and how fast they're moving, if somebody believes that they can build it all, I honestly don't know what they're thinking. But having said that, right, there was a world we used to call friends and enemies. I think everybody's a frenemy these days to some extent. You got to collaborate with everybody. And, if everybody plays in their, what I like to call the swim lane that they are good at, and they're happy to collaborate and partner, at the end of the day, it goes back to delivering value to the person you're selling something to. So if it means 1 + 1 becomes 11 because you partner with somebody, absolutely, right? And nobody's going to entertain you for your core strength unless you provide value. So it finally comes down to value. And if value means I got to go partner with somebody else because I only have 50% of the pie solved, and for the remaining 50% I need 3 partners, then so be it, right? So I don't think anybody can feel they can conquer this completely by themselves. And you need everybody in the ecosystem to come together. Obviously, some companies have the luxury to move faster. Some may have to move somewhat slower. But there is a meeting in between, and you got to make this work together.
Ripunjai?
So I think I agree with what Rishi is saying, because a person who is at the other side, who's consuming your services, looks for a single interface. So everybody has to partner and present, and no company in this ecosystem can provide all the things together. So everybody, as Rishi said, that everybody is good at one thing and maybe not so good as another thing, but have to eventually partner so that they can go jointly to that person and deliver value, which is more important.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, with time coming to an end, we come to the end of our discussion. Thank you so much, panelists. And thank you, audience, for bearing with us. Can we have a round of applause for all speakers, please? Thank you so much.